there was a real problem with the lab leak hypothesis, in that Trump was so adamant in calling it the China virus. A lot of people that wanted to resist the idea that it was possible that this thing had come out of this level 4 lab that just happened to be coincidentally in Wuhan.
Scientists have been naming diseases after the places they came from for a very long time. Zika is from the Zika forest. Ebola from the Ebola River.
We have to investigate the lab accident. We have no information that is getting us closer to the virus. All the investigations have been crap, okay? There's a lack of curiosity, both in governments around the world, in international organizations, and in the media. And nobody seems to care.
Hantavirus, the Hantan River. There's the West Nile virus and guinea worm and
3 million deaths. Right. No statute of limitations on 3 million deaths. Right. Every one of those coffins comes with a lawyer.
They don't need to find the source. They just need to make sure we don't find the source.
Got it.
Doctors tell people lies because they don't trust you to finish the antibiotics after your tick starts feeling better. And media, the more they can get you to stay inside and watch their panic porn, the higher the ratings.
Oh wait, this is really dangerous, because this story is not, the coronavirus origin story is not just about blaming China. You could blame China for a number of things in the pandemic, for hiding the science, for hiding the scientists, for jailing the journalists, for not locking down. This story is about figuring out how this happened so that it doesn't happen again. You know, in any disaster in the world, whether it's a plane crash or anything, the obvious thing to do is to figure out what happened. Because otherwise, how can you inform policy and politics to make sure that it doesn't happen again? It seems pretty obvious. But at that time, the coronavirus origin was considered very impolite. And now add to that the fact that the Chinese government called, and this is in the book, called the State Department and told them, if you talk about the origin publicly, because some of it had begun to be discussed, you won't get your masks. You want your masks? You want your PPE? You remember those plane loads that are coming from your factory? It's like the American factory in China, but like in the crisis, it wasn't an American factory at all. They just nationalized that shit. And they're like, if you don't want your masks, then go ahead, talk about the coronavirus origin.
Wow. Rocky Mountain spotted fever, and of course, the Spanish flu. MERS stands for Middle Eastern Respiratory Syndrome.
These diplomats were like, hey, we got a problem here. This lab is under-resourced and understaffed, and they're doing risky research on bat coronaviruses that could infect humans. That was 2 years prior. You're telling me that this outbreak happened next to these labs, and what are the labs doing? Oh, they're making bat coronaviruses more virulent through what's known as gain-of-function research. And they're doing that, they have the most bat coronaviruses in the world, and the research that they were doing was to make them more infectious towards human lungs. And then we have a virus outbreak in Wuhan that's a bat coronavirus where the ACE2 receptor is the exact same thing. How dare you look at the lab? It could not possibly be the lab. You're a racist and a conspiracy theory if you dare to mention the lab. And if you utter it, you shall be shunned.
We can't stop telling the truth because racists get the wrong idea. This has nothing to do with Asian Americans, and it has everything to do with China.
So they go to the lab for 3 hours, talk to their best friends, look them straight in the eye. Did you do it? No, we didn't do it. Okay, case closed. And then they concluded in their WHO report that the lab theory is very unlikely. We don't need to look into the lab, case closed. But Robert Redfield, who was the CDC director at the time, a trained virologist, he says, I took a look at this virus and I concluded that it's so powerful that it must have been evolved in a lab setting. And he pointed to the gain-of-function research and they called him a racist and conspiracy theorist.
So when someone says, what if people hear Chinese virus and blame China? The answer is we should blame China.
So, Anthony Fauci, the hero of the pandemic, is the most important person in the world of gain-of-function research there is. He is the one dispersing all of the grants for this, like undid the pause. The details are a little sketchy. He found a way to turn it back on in the mess of the Trump administration. And that's what a lot of Americans don't understand. Like, how could, I thought we were just doing open science. What could be bad about that? What, they're going to hide stuff in the labs? Why would they do that, you know? But for the people inside the government who understood how the CCP operates, of course it's what they would do. And for the people who saw how they responded to the SARS virus in 2002 and 2003, that's exactly what they did. They did the same things.
This isn't the first time. SARS came from China, and the bird flu, and the Hong Kong flu, the Asian flu. Those are just facts. I know it's irresponsible of me to say them. The last thing you want to do is say something insensitive. We would literally rather die
this is an organization that has to be viewed with clear eyes. And the clear eyes are that they covered up the origin, they covered up the science, they still won't give us the data that they have to this day. And this is having a direct effect on our security and our prosperity and our public health. And so we're going to have to do something about that.
Over the past year, the COVID pandemic has prompted the medical establishment, the media, and the government to take a scared straight approach to getting the public to comply with their recommendations. Well, I'm from a different school. Give it to me straight, Doc. Because in the long run, that always works better than you can't handle the truth. If you lie to people, even for a very good cause, you lose their trust.
Massive intelligence failure, that in any sane world, you would have a commission, like a 9/11 style commission would be like, how did this happen? Not just, how did this happen? How did we get into this dystopian, crazy reality that we're all suffering in? And not just Americans, 7 billion people suffering.
Seriously, it scares me that there are people out there who would rather die from the virus than call it by the wrong name. This isn't about vilifying a culture. This is about facts. This is about life and death.